Today's episode is brought to you by FreedomProject Academy. Looking for a K-12 classical online school built on Judeo-Christian values? FPA is enrolling now for the fall. Request your free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com.
It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We got a great packed program for you today, so please hit that share button and let's get educated. Before we start, parents, are you worried about the indoctrination happening in public schools? I have great news. There's a revolution transforming education, and it's not happening in the classroom. Schoolhouse Rock, the homeschool revolutionary video, follows one family on their journey to dispel every single myth and misconception surrounding homeschooling. You get the absolute truth of what it's like to homeschool. You need to get a copy of this. Watch this today with your family on DVD or HD streaming by visiting schoolhouserock.com/FP. Again, that's schoolhouserock.com/FP. This is a great movie, a great rationale why every mother in this country ought to be homeschooling their kids. You got to check it out. Okay, today we start with another example of how deep down the rabbit hole our educational system has become after a self-proclaimed genderfluid witch who also teaches preschoolers admits on TikTok that she loves teaching 3- and 4-year-olds exclusively about her gender fluidity and her pagan values.
Man, y'all thought me teaching the children about me being poly was crazy. But not only that, but they also know that I'm gender fluid. At one point last year, I had explained to them that I was not Miss Lois or Mr. Lois. It's just Lois because I'm not a boy or a girl. And this was all well and good until October, when I also explained to them that I'm pagan, so I am also a witch. And at one point I had gotten a haircut and I gotten the sides of my mohawk shaved down. And I come into work and one of the children goes, "Lois, are you a boy? You have short hair." And his sister goes, "No, Lois is a girl." And a third child, who's my favorite, suddenly yells, "No guys, we've been over this. Lois isn't a boy or a girl. Lois is a witch."
That supposedly is Lois Schwartz. May the Schwartz be with her, or not. We're not really sure what she's into, but
it's Witchy Poo.
It's Witchy Poo. She, as you could see there, is all about and excited to confuse the children. 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and she's picking her favorites and quietly announcing them out loud. But that's also what people who talk to themselves a lot do. They just do things like this. That's what we're working with here, and you've talked about it, we've talked about it a lot. The fact that we have teachers these days focused on TikTok videos more than they are focused on educating your children with anything that is of substance. They take now to TikTok to brag about how they are purposely indoctrinating your children and trying to take your children away from you. That's what they're doing. They're excited about it. And so TikTok, which is, I guess, supposed to be a platform I think teenagers still use. I'm not really hip on it. I'm too old for TikTok, but not these teachers, because that's the way they communicate to one another. It's like their brag spot, I guess. But according to that TikTok account, it's Go Lolo Stream. So if you want to see more of her videos, Go Lolo Stream.
Yeah, and it's the stone cold narcissism, if I may quote Daryl from The Office. The stone cold narcissism of these teachers. I mean, how many have we showed you now in the last 3 months? It's about me. It's about me. My job as a teacher is all about me. It has nothing to do with my kids. In fact, how do you get to be Witchy Poo's favorite kid? Be the one who quickly realizes that she's not a boy, not a girl, she's just a witch. So the compliant ones, the ones who don't know what they're saying, but stumble upon the right words to make Witchy Poo happy, that's what it comes down to in terms of teaching and education. Now, this is the kind of thing, too. I mean, these TikTok videos, as Katie pointed out, the already passe concept of the selfie video here, all self-congratulatory, like, my paganism's a big deal. Not only, it's like there's a grab bag here. How many things that I can do just to shock kids, just to push alternative realities upon them that their 3 and 4-year-old minds aren't going to grasp anyway. So she's not just gender fluid, but she's pagan. And I love the fact that for her, being pagan means you are a witch. I'm a pagan, she said, therefore I'm a witch, as if to be one is exactly the same as the other. And we got to hear about her haircut, we got to hear about her mohawk, we got to hear about how these kids at the youngest possible ages are being subjected to this. And I ask you again, Mom, what's the reason to send them? I mean, you couldn't pick a worse babysitter if you tried. If you had 200 candidates to be your babysitters for your 3-year-old, you wouldn't pick this woman. She wouldn't make the top 200. But lo and behold, you send her to public or collective daycare, you send them to preschool. This is the best and the brightest they can come up with.
Well, as the movie says, don't tell Mom the babysitter's dead. I think that would be a better babysitter than the current babysitters
Bernie.
that they are doing. Weekend at Bernie's. So I think there is one person who commented via Twitter about this TikTok video, and it just sums up what all of us normal, sane adults are thinking, and it just wraps it up in a nice little bow. So I'm going to read this anonymous Twitter handle owner. I think that the American education system is completely and has completely been taken over by leftists. From the top down, we have the school board, the superintendent, the teachers, the staff, and it has been completely taken over the last few years. So what we're seeing is the push for, the woke agenda, which includes obviously the sexual stuff and the critical race theory, and even more, even some anti-American propaganda. We're seeing all of that being incorporated into all the schools, which are run by these crazy leftists. It's a nice little package, wrap it up in a bow, and send it on its merry way.
Yeah, I mean, it was a concise and matter-of-fact statement, but the problem is what you're going to do about it, right? Okay, I'm proud to say that we've been identifying that problem for a long time. The entire Dr. Duke show for the last 2 years has been pointing those things out to you. The good thing is that we have not yet reached the point where preschool is mandatory. That's a great big deal, right? So you don't have to send them. Look, let me tell you, Mom and Dad, in case you're unaware of this, there are a lot of studies out there that demonstrate sending your kids to school, or to daycare for that matter, at 3 and 4, it gives them no academic boost whatsoever. It doesn't make them smarter, doesn't make them read quicker, it has no real intelligence benefit. However, now that we've studied preschool and education for a while, we do know that one thing that preschool public education does do is lead to, in some kids, severe depressive issues when they get older. Think about it. Think about how young the child is being removed from his family, or the child being put into these day school. It's pretty shocking to the system. They're not getting the same kind of care, the kind of individuality, the kind of individual time that they get when they're at home. They're in a very different environment, surrounded by people all of a sudden at the age of 3. So there are certainly potential consequences socially. Isn't it interesting how long the progressive lefts have been telling us, you homeschoolers, you don't know how to socialize your kids? Well, we now have evidence that putting your kids in school too early unsocializes them, if I may use that term.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
What I'm about to say will come at no shock to anyone except those who intentionally are indoctrinating your kids, which is to say pretty much every teacher who is on TikTok. Now, during the pandemic, the children fell dramatically behind in their academics. Okay, no shock. We knew that, unfortunately. But in many more important ways, in realistically for life, is the basic skills that they fell behind in. Washington Post just did a report on basically getting stories from across the country from various teachers about what they were seeing in the classroom when their students came back this past fall, which is pretty much when most, I will say, of the schools went back in person. And the story that the Washington Post did actually began with a teacher named Christine Jarbo, and she's a first grade teacher in Fairfax County Public Schools. And so this is the first time that their classroom returned for the first full year of in-person learning. And because she's a first grade teacher, this is exactly like what should be case studied essentially across the whole country about how our kindergartners, even the first and second graders, when they come back, what they're missing. And she said, you'd say, okay, can you show me how to tie your shoes? She'd say to her students. And most of them would just kind of look at me like really confused. They really weren't sure even where to begin or to where to start. And she said that students couldn't cut along a dotted line with a scissors. They couldn't squeeze glue bottle to make just a little dot on there. They couldn't twist on and off any caps. These are just basic skills. And first graders, 6-year-olds, couldn't do them. And it's, you know, what's happening with the pandemic. And this goes all across the country, and we knew this was going to happen, basically with academics, but the simple fact that life skills are being missed is pretty tragic.
What's tragic, I think, is we have a double crisis, right? We have parents in the home who are neglecting their duty as parents, putting kids in front of videos and sitting them there, having them watch cartoons all day, having them spend great deals of time home alone or without any kind of interaction with you as the parent. The fact that it's the school's job to teach them skills and information. They're having a hard time doing it because your kids can barely do the functional things that little children are supposed to learn in the home. It's a double crisis. At the same time when parental interest and time to look into their children's developmental needs is running right into the brick wall of public school education, that is really not about public education at all. It's about ideology. And so there's nobody there to do these things for your kids. And this is going to bode very, very badly for America down the road in very short time. And I would say one thing too. This is not, we're far enough past COVID, I can say this. This is not just about COVID. If you want to flatter yourself that if COVID had never happened, our kids would be where they're up to speed where they should be, that is a great big no, they wouldn't be. The signs of this have been going on for at least 5, 6, 7 years. The reduced expectations, the lower expectations, the unwillingness to have kids work hard to do any kind of homework at home. School ends when the school day ends. When they get home, it's all about getting on the play of their video games, getting on the internet. This is going on for a while, and not only is it breeding a incredibly ignorant generation who is being led by the nose by the kind of goofy teachers we showed you in the last video, but these kids can't critically think. They cannot separate good information from bad information. They are almost completely incapable of looking after themselves, and that's going to be a revolution when it finally hits the wall.
And if we take a little look-see at what some of the other examples are, we have a New York City elementary school that imported non-traditional seats, which included squishy red bean bags that allowed children to wriggle and squirm during class. Basically what they're finding is that these kids have no ability to just sit patiently and quietly, that they're always kind of having a physical reaction of something, so they squirm and they have to wriggle around. So, you know, we're just gonna go with what the students want and then just put in these lovely little beanbags.
Let's get them a noisy, self-distracting kind of chair to sit in. That's just what the doctor ordered.
Now, staffers at an elementary school in Oakland, California were weary of conflicts happening during recess, and they're training the 4th and 5th graders as basically being safety leaders to mediate between the peers, because in Oakland, and you know, this may be happening at your school too, kids don't know how to interact with one another, and they don't know how to, you know, use manners between one another, and so there's these conflicts that are arising, and they just have no understanding of how to, you know, interact on a basic human level at a little kid age. Now in Philadelphia, there were 2 teachers who created a literacy buddy room in which 5th graders and kindergartners pair off to read together, building literacy and relational skills at the same time. And that, I think, is really a kind of a cool thing. I know when I was roughly that age, we had like the upper elementary kind of mentored, buddied up with a younger elementary, and it was kind of a cool thing because you got to go and read together, and you got to kind of see what it was like to be a big kid, and then when you got to be the big kid, you got to mentor the little kid. So that's actually something I think is positive. The reason that we definitely need it happening is because apparently they're not learning to read in the classroom either, because now and we've seen it happening, but it just got obviously way, way worse with the pandemic, is the teachers are in charge of trying to do the basic life skills with these kids, in addition to teaching them or what they should be teaching, reading, writing, and arithmetic. So it's everyone out of school trying to teach everything, especially post-pandemic.
Well, and we know what happens in those circumstances. The teachers then they see themselves more, and this is absolutely documentable over the last few years, they become the parents. We're going to sit there, teach them how to tie the shoes, we're going to teach them how to cut with scissors, all over and above all these other things, have to teach them some kind of etiquette, some kind of conversation skills. I'm sympathetic to the argument, I absolutely am, that teachers are getting these kids, and these kids are not in a place where they can learn. However, you see what's happened here, right? To allow a very politicized group of teachers and teachers unions now to usurp that from the parents, and to not just level this off at teaching kids how to cut or to color or to talk or to speak, but then to fill their heads full of union-approved left-wing garbage makes this even worse. So the kids aren't getting an education anywhere, and the education they do get now is highly politicized, highly exclusive, and very, very focused on things that have actually nothing to do why you send your kids to the schools in the first place. We've got a crisis, and I think one of the things that we could do to fix this crisis is once and for all stop calling them public schools. Let's call them what they are. They're government schools. Parents are being told you have less say in what goes on. Parents are being frozen out. It's not like the teachers who are trying to teach these kids these life skills are actually reaching out to mom and dad and saying, hey, come be partners with us, come and help us with this. No, they just want you out of the picture. So they're government schools. And once we classify them as government schools, then you have a choice now. They're not mandatory anymore. You can send your kid to the government school, and then your taxpayer dollars can go to fund that government school. But if you opt out of the government school system, you should get that money, and you should be able to go into actual public schools. We need a new definition of what a public school is, because this isn't it anymore. Parents, I think, would be very willing to send their kids to a functional public school. Public meaning belongs to us, the taxpayers. But this government school nonsense that have taken that over, you're forcing kids into schools that are not public, even though moms and dads pay for it, and then telling moms and dads to hit the road. That's the kind of schooling that has to go away.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
Say it ain't so. The California public school enrollment, it's dropped by 110,000 students just this year alone. And you may say it's all the pandemic's fault. I get that, but it has been dropping for 5 consecutive years. So California, you're doing great. Now, California enrollment stood at 5,892,240 when it was measured in the fall of 2021, and that's a 1.8% decline, according to the state data that was recently gathered. It is the first time since 2000 that the state's K-12 population has dipped below the 6 million student mark, and the large urban districts account for 1/3 of the drop. Saw that one coming. Now, the state did have the largest drop in 20 years, just last year when it was a drop of 160,000. So they're just going to keep on dropping by the hundreds of thousands, apparently, at this point. According to Heather J. Hoff, who is the executive director of the policy analysis for California education, she said that one of the questions that we just have to come back to is just where are those kids? We don't have satisfying data to answer that question. So not only have they lost 110,000 students this year, they literally have lost 10,000 students. They don't know where they are. Poof, gone.
Well, and many of those kids are from, like you said, the big cities, right? We know that the Los Angeles Unified School District is a disaster. As of about this time last year, they were 80% of African American men, young boys graduating from their high schools, were functionally illiterate. We knew we had a big problem with absentees in their classrooms last year during COVID, and we're not surprised now. The reality is that the state of California I'm surprised it's not worse. I mean, when you take the people who are moving out, The people who just can no longer take the taxes, can no longer take the diktats coming from a quasi-dictator named Gavin Newsom, all of this craziness in California, people are leaving. So, but then they're being replaced by immigrants, oftentimes illegal immigrants, whose kids are going to school, public schools as well. So the other thing is that now, not only are the schools suffering, now the schools are losing native speakers, and they're getting a whole group of Spanish speakers, which is completely confusing the system as well, especially in places like San Diego and Los Angeles and other places like that. So, not sure what the answer is, California, but the one thing I'll say is the fewer kids you have in your public schools, the better off the whole country is going to be in the long run.
Hi everyone, I'm David Fiorazzo. Before we go, let's take a minute and just fill you in on some stories we've been talking about around the office. And this time, let's start with the online shopping giant Amazon. As the company says, historic economic inflation has forced them to raise prices. That's right, April 28th, Amazon will be placing a 5% fuel and inflation surcharge on all products stored in their warehouses and fulfillment centers, which means get ready to pay more for your Amazon purchases. Now, Amazon isn't the only company upping prices. Uber and Lyft just announced they too will be raising their costs to cope with high gas prices. Now, let's move on to Hollywood, where Warner Brothers is looking to get rich and appease the Rainbow Mafia by doing some creative editing to their latest release of the new Harry Potter prequel, Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. Much like Disney, Warner Brothers is a proud supporter of the LGBT agenda, and to prove their bona fides, they have made sure to acknowledge that Dumbledore, the main character, is gay. That's right. Oh, that is unless China comes calling. In a statement released by the studio, China asked them to remove 6 seconds of dialogue from the movie where the main character says he's gay. The statement reads, quote, "As a studio, we are committed to safeguarding the integrity of every film we release, and that extends to circumstances that necessitate making nuanced cuts in order to respond sensitively to a variety of in-market factors." So in other words, Warner Brothers proudly supports and promotes LGBT characters in America, but when China says no way, they happily tweak their level of rainbow pride for the almighty daughter. Katie, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, we don't have enough time to talk about whether or not Dumbledore is gay or whether or not I care, but the simple fact, knowing that long after the series came out, is when J.K. Rowling actually said, "Oh yeah, he's gay, by the way," just to kind of appease whatever. Meanwhile, the fact that Warner Brothers is kowtowing, obviously, with whatever China wants just makes perfect sense, because in like LeBron James and everyone else in Hollywood and the sports, especially the NBA, it's all about whatever China wants so that we can still get paid.
So in China, we now literally have a don't say gay bill, right? Literally, the Chinese are saying don't say gay, and all the lefties are fine with it. In Florida, you've got a don't say gay bill that's not that, and all the libs are losing their mind. Shows you how liberalism is a mental disorder.
Absolutely. And you know, they don't care what Christians in America think, but when the Chinese Communist Party objects to something, ooh, let's remove it. All right. But let's wrap things up with one more movie dripping in Hollywood irony. It's just been announced that Will Ferrell will join Margot Robbie, Amy Schumer, Ryan Gosling, and Anne Hathaway in the live-action film adaptation of Barbie. The details are still under wraps, but filming has already begun in London and is set for release in theaters in 2023. And Barbie isn't the only toy movie hitting the big screen. Mattel has 5 other films in pre-production, including Magic 8 Ball, Hot Wheels, Masters of the Universe, Polly Pocket, and Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I remember playing that. Duke and Katie, out of those 6, including Barbie, which one would you be most curious or interested in seeing?
I wonder what Magic 8 Ball is going to include. Like, it's a Magic 8 Ball, and you shake it and you ask it questions.
You'll have to ask later. I can't pick. Where's the watch paint dry option? I'm holding out for that one.
I'm wondering how you make a movie out of some of these things. Anyway, that wraps up this segment. More to come next time.
All right, now as we wrap things up, let's show some love to our Patriot Club members. And today, that special shout out goes to Gina from White Lake, Michigan. Gina, thank you for supporting the show.
And that wraps up this said show. For all of us at Freedom Project, we would like you to stay educated. My friends.